Welcome to May's Poetry Parley with Peggy Shumaker, brought to you by Sandra Clevin and Caitlin Buxbaum. Poetry Parley is a free event. Each month there's a local poet who reads their work, and the local poet selects a poet of influence, and the poet of influence for Peggy Shumaker is Alberto Rios. Peggy, I'm very excited to hear you read. I haven't heard you read since when I went to the conferences.
Oh my gosh, that's been a while.
It's been really a while, yeah. I used to go pretty religiously, so I'm excited.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being here.
I remember they had this one conference where we had to write down all the first lines of stories that we wanted to write. I always think about that one, and I think I've written a couple of those stories. So,
That's good.
yeah, but this is a fantastic poet that you've chosen.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate his work, and he's been a mainstay in my life.
I hadn't been introduced to him before, so I'm excited.
I'm glad.
So I'm Sandy Clevin. Welcome, Peggy. Welcome, everyone. Very nice to see you. I'm not the editor of Cirque and Cirque Press. I'm really the publisher because someone far better than me is the editor, the very talented Mike Burwell. And he would be here tonight, except he's at kind of an end of quarter thing where he's working at University of New Mexico. He gives his apologies. He would love to be here. Anyway, Cirque has been a thing now for about 12 years, and maybe we have 3.5 years into Cirque Press. Many things, many things newly in print and also in the wings, and we're having a wonderful time working with writers and poets. So it's my pleasure to introduce our featured poet. I met Peggy first at a craft talk in graduate school. I was just a lowly student. You probably don't remember me, but it was in the library, and that was where we met. But I'm going to read the bio. Peggy Shumaker served as Alaska State Writer Laureate and the Rasmuson Foundation's Distinguished Artist. She's author of 9 books, including Karen, Just Breathe Normally. She serves on the boards of Story Knife, the Alaska Arts and Culture Foundation, and the Ras Shumaker Prairie Schooner Book Prizes. Shumaker edits Boreal Books, an imprint of Red Hen Press, and the Alaska Literary Series. She's also a contributing editor for Alaska Quarterly Review. With that, I turn the program over to Peggy Shumaker. Thank you.
So I would like to say thank you to Sandy, to Caitlin, and to the whole crew at Cirque and at Poetry Parley. Thanks to everyone who has Zoomed in tonight. And special thanks to the people who signed up to be readers. And that'll be really interesting at the end of the event. I'm going to begin with some brand new poems, first time out of the barn. So we'll see how it goes. This first one needs no introduction. We've all lived through We've all lived through the experience that this poem describes. Came a sickness. The people were used to dying, one at a time. Then came a sickness upon the land. Came a sickness to every nation. Came a sickness that killed the already ill, killed those who had not known sickness, killed the generous who cared for the dying, killed the careless, killed those who embraced worship, killed those who touched no God. The people were used to grieving by gathering the goodness each person brought to the world. Left, bereft, we masked ourselves. So many at once, gone. Gone without touching, without goodbye, without rights perfected over centuries. Came more sickness of mind, scams, lies, the constant, deliberate epidemic of lies. Came fine minds creating vaccines. Came for the lucky recovery. Came brown, blue, hazel, green, eyes above cloth, seeking other eyes. Came deep grief, opening rituals we'd never touched. Breathe in, breathe out, this air we share. Each breath, a blessing. Each breath, a prayer. Many of the people in this chat room knew the late, great Sherry Simpson, and we all miss her. We miss her terribly. She died, for those of you who didn't know her, she died this year, not of COVID, and she died quite suddenly. Her husband, Scott Kiefer, contacted friends and loved ones and said, if you pray, pray. If you hope, hope that she won't have to linger. So this piece takes place when it became clear that Sherry's brain would not return. And the you in the poem is Scott. Until now. If impatience were left to her, she'd chafe at care spent to ease her body only, her mind and soul having flown. Beloved, friend of your youth and decades beyond youth, you cannot imagine wishing her dead. Until now. Swift and serene, let it be. Many of you, especially those of you who were in the UAA program, and up at UAF too, because she was in both places, knew Eva Salitas, poet, essayist, biologist, runner, oboe player, magnificent cook, and great companion. The next poem came from a moment we almost shared when we were together on the big island of Hawaii. This one's called Gifts We Cannot Keep, for Eva. At the old Kona airport, past soccer fields and abandoned hangars, cracked up asphalt spreads. Taxiways for miles parallel the Pacific. We'd just come from Body Flow, a class that, in your words, kicked my ass. By then, though, you'd caught a second wind. You wanted a run. I have never wanted a run. We did not yet know what coursed again inside you. You took off, gazelle in grubby gym clothes. I clambered up onto lava rocks to watch the surf. White foam turns spume over jagged black. Your study animals, orcas, white and black, far from here, gorged on seals and porpoises. You knew already that after the spill, you were witnessing their last days, listening underwater for the language spoken only by this pod that after the spill did not make babies. You saved your breath for prayers in wind, for poems and songs and long hours glassing the water. We had no way then to know that they were back, the cells that could not control themselves, those cells. You ran beyond where I could see. I faced the vast waters. One moment's calm, then the ocean explodes, barnacle-crusted, humpback, full-body breach splashes me. Wild eye, huge and watching, whale pausing like Baryshnikov in rarefied air. The greatest gift of all we cannot know, laid out before us, broken as asphalt, mended as water mends, then mends again. Sometimes doing the right thing is really awful, but no matter how difficult, it's still right. This is a poem that begins when my beloved signed a do not resuscitate order, but then the poem, as happens sometimes, decided it wanted to go off in a completely different direction, and so it ends up in a place I would never have predicted. I hope you're able to follow your poems that way sometimes. This one's called Do Not Resuscitate. You weren't afraid, you say, when you put pen to paper, to instruct those who might restart your stopped heart, not to. No, not afraid, more calm. This danger orange form making clear to ones who know nothing of you, clear too to those who love you well, that you're mindful. Your time breathing easy on this earth is short. Your plenty mostly spent. 6 children, 10 grandchildren. Great love. Piloting your amphibious widgeon, landing on water, wild and remote. Or off a tiny island in Fiji, night diving to watch soft corals open their polyps, millions of mouths filled with want, blue ribbon eels coughing, that considerable current pulling us fast, and you dream flying, letting it take you. So we'll move from Fiji to a different part of the ocean. This one takes place on a tourist beach for Mexican tourists. Timbales are a kind of drum. Guitarrón is the big round back instrument played in mariachi bands. Norteño is a kind of music. And you will hear in this poem that roosters don't say the same thing in Spanish that they say in English. Young boy dancing at Playa Los Muertos. Had he been naked as he skipped, shivering out of the waves, we would not have known he was so poor. But he was not naked. He wore around his hips an exhausted pair of cast-off underwear gathered up at the hip, secured with the wire twist from some tourist's loaf of bread. He shivered, the edges of his lips blue as the Virgin's veil. Semana Santa, Holy Week, too early, really, for perfect swimming. Vendors hawk Duxco silver, mangoes on a stick, onyx seahorses chiming, whole perch skewered and seared. His eyes swam after the fish boy. Timbales called out the guitarrón. Mariachis knocked norteño beats, blanket to blanket, up the beach. The skinny one held on to his saggy pants, elbowed close to sing along. Someone else's fat papa lifted an eyebrow in invitation, laughed, and together man and boy danced a slick merengue, flicked their hips, ta-ta-ta, swirled, one hand suave against the belly. The other, a green rooster, ki, ki, sunrise all day long. The boy's whole body told its truth. He was not starving, no matter what his ribs said. And his skin could go ahead and offer the opinions of its array of scars. No slash, no welt, no still healing burn along his face, neck, shoulder, could talk louder than the genius of his tiny hips, those quick and playful acts of God. So I know many of you have probably written in response to artwork, and this is a double ekphrastic poem because it was written in response to a painting by Kess Woodward, but it was also thinking about a dance performance by a woman, one of whose specialties is moving very, very, very slowly. One of her numbers, she begins nude on a pedestal, lit blue, and she's standing straight up. And by the end of the piece, she's in the shape of an egg, and she moves so slowly, you can barely tell that she's moved at all. And this poem describes a different piece that she does, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. 3 Blues, after Maureen Fleming. We once watched a woman naked with grace fall down a flight of stairs so steep no doll sheep could balance there. Set of stairs built precisely for falling. The woman had trained body and soul to fall exquisitely, slowly, sculpting light. Each movement melting into the next so that time held its breath. The eye could not trust what it couldn't see. Gestures so quiet, they register only after we notice their passing. Her falling took infinity along for the ride. Her spine, knobby testament to all we must imagine. Dancing shape of galaxies, sending tendrils of stardust to breathe in dark matter, where we live incompletely, aware one moment. Paints wet on the palette, brush tip blending 3 blues with a touch of black. Slow swirl, graceful and sure, painting past knowing, painting into all we cannot touch. The LA poet Eloise Klein Healy woke one morning and spoke to her partner of 28 years, and nothing came out. She had 1 syllable. And it turned out after many, many medical tests and after many weeks in the hospital that she had a form of encephalitis that left gaps in her brain. She has now regained so much language that her speech therapist has written a book about her recovery, saying she's never seen anyone come back from a deficit so deep. I mean, she had 1 syllable, and now she's back to reading her own poems in public, which simply doesn't happen. But her partner, Colleen, says, I've learned to speak aphasia. And this poem takes place after her injury, when they're still making their way. Anyone who comes here must be transformed. Whether hatched from a shell, brittle or leathery, whether launched down that muscular slide, whether blown in on winds prevailing, anyone who arrives here must be transformed. Toward dusk, take your ease. Drop anchor for the night. Cry out and see what others provide. To your lips, your beloved must lift morsels warm and soft as muscles unmoved. Late in life, after much pain, this beloved touched down. Stranger, your heart awaited always. The blank space in you reshaped to her dimension, and hers to you. Now you make room for words that take sweet time surfacing, room for hands that tremble when they cannot grasp the simplest cup. Together you learn again how to breathe, eat, drink, how to walk on surfaces smooth or rocky, how to cook up ways to crack the other up. Together, you refine losses, life-giving language, how to keep love laughing. I'm going to mention the form of this poem just because you can't hear it, and I'll just tell you what it is. But I should also tell you that Alberto Rios and I were in a forms class together, and if you can believe this, the professor, a crusty old guy, said, "We're not having any worksheets in this class." And so we would come into class, he was quite formal. Tito Alberto would read his poem, and then he would look at me and he would say, "Where did he break form?" It was absolutely terrifying. And we had no worksheets. By the end of the semester, we could all hear. We could hear a lot better than we could at the beginning of the semester, but man, that was scary. So this one, for you poetry nerds, is an abecedarium, which means the first line of each, the first letter of each line is a letter of the alphabet and goes through the whole alphabet. So of course it has 26 lines. It takes place on the banks of the Chena River. In praise, ephemera. By the way, I like praising what gets away from us because essentially everything gets away from us. In praise, ephemera. At dawn, feeding swans, upended by the ice shelf. Black beaks champing half-thawed weeds, draw us to the riverbank. Grizzled feathers, echo of boots over rotting snow. Far between, few tundra swans step out on late ice. Glacial melt, snow melt, hustle downstream. Ice dams hold tight, jostled swaths of half-lace ice. Knife-edged, narrow leads open. Sliced river, swollen. Muskrat and beaver gnaw new shoots of red willow. Open winter lodges. Fresh water, air. Pollen, lavish, carpets the quick and the dead. Blessing the revived, blessing the remade. Season of cold, broken. Season of ice, broken. Season of tattered shirt sleeves. Bare hands, useful again after burrowing all winter. Voles gather first shoots of new grasses. Weave fresh sheaves to put by. Chew new roots, shoots and xylem. Drunk on the season's sugar, risen yesterday and today, this hour zipping by, lifting off, wild swan in clear sky. And because a lot of those lines were enjambed, I'm going to read for you the first words of each line so you can hear how it goes.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Okay, good. At, by, champing, draw, echo, few, glacial, hustle, ice, jostled, knife-edged leads, muskrat new, open, pollen, quick, revived, season, tattered, useful, voles, weave, xylem, yesterday, zipping. So that's just a fun thing. The photographer, Barry McGuane, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, probably not very well, but he has an image that involves a river frozen so strangely that it made steps in the ice. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Almost.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, good. So that image is where this poem started. I was thinking a lot about how a photographer essentially picks out a way to focus our attention and eliminates everything else, and in that way teaches us to see and allows us to feel. Selection, huh? Maybe writers do the same thing. We select things. Stop Bath, in honor of Barry McGuane. How many winters did you traipse through snow to the riverbank, toting tripod, lenses, filters, new body? How many times did you check the light, wait in hard cold, check again, stiff fingers barely curled around the camera? How many bends and riffles tripped you, brittle weeds held fast? How much overflow crept out from under ice, hardened, gushed, seeped, froze? How many years looking before you framed these crusted steps of ice, stopped in silver gelatin? How many times did you point out on archival paper what's right here under our frost-nipped toes? Look. So I thank you so much for sharing this time with me. I'm going to take a moment to introduce to you my poet of influence, Alberto Rios. In about, I think, 1971, we walked out of a creative writing class and sat down on a curb and started a conversation that has never ended. He and I have been, we were teenagers then, and we've been friends for 50 years. We grew up as poets together. We learned our craft together. We have watched the world change quite a lot over the last half century. I will tell you that his mother was born in Lancashire, Warrington, England. His dad was born in Tapachulas, Chiapas, Mexico. They met when his mom was a nurse and his dad was a wounded soldier. And they wanted very much to be married, but the army in his wisdom saw a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, very tiny woman and a man with black hair and brown skin and said, no, you can't get married. So Agnes, who had never been more than 15 kilometers from her house in England, went across an ocean and across a continent and found her beloved in Nogales, Arizona. Tito grew up on the US side. Nogales is split. There's Nogales, Arizona, USA, and Nogales, Sonora, Mexico, and the border runs right down the middle between the two of them. He grew up on the border before it was militarized. The border used to be a place that people would cross to visit friends and family. They would cross to go get lunch. They would cross to shop. They would cross to have a good time. And they went both directions. And now it's a very different situation entirely. Alberto Rios has been teaching he is the Regents Professor of Creative Writing at Arizona State University. He's been teaching since the 80s. His very first book won the Walt Whitman Award, and he's had many awards since. His most recent book is Not Go Away Is My Name from Copper Canyon Press. He served as a chancellor of the Academy of American Poets, and he serves now as the Poet Laureate of the state of Arizona. I'm going to read you the next to the last poem in this book. I have this quirk that I read the last poem first, but I'm not going to read you the very last one. I'm going to read you the next to the last one. This apparently is a poem that a lot of kids pick for the Poetry Out Loud competition. And I am not accomplished enough to have memorized the poem, but I can just see high school kids learning this poem by heart. A House Called Tomorrow. You are not 15 or 12 or 17. You are 100 wild centuries and 15, bringing with you in every breath and in every step everyone who has come before you, all the yous that you have been, the mothers of your mother, the fathers of your father. If someone in your family tree was trouble, 100 were not. The bad do not win, not finally, no matter how loud they are. We would simply not be here if that were so. You are made fundamentally from the good. With this knowledge, you never march alone. You are the breaking news of the century. You are the good who has come forward through it all, even if so many days feel otherwise. But think, when you as a child learned to speak, it's not that you didn't know words. It's that from the centuries, you knew so many, and it's hard to choose the words that will be your own. From those centuries, we human beings bring with us the simple solutions and songs, the river bridges and star charts and song harmonies, all in service to a simple idea that we can make a house called tomorrow. What we bring finally into the new day, every day, is ourselves. And that's all we need to start. That's everything we require to keep going. Look back only for as long as you must. Then go forward into the history you will make. Be good, then better. Write books, cure disease. Make us proud. Make yourself proud. And those who came before you, when you hear thunder, hear it as their applause. Now, we have several readers who've signed up to read poems by Alberto Rios.
I just want everyone to see the ordering. I'll just read it off really quick. Monica, Eric, Wendy, Tonya, Cynthia, Jean. I haven't seen Jean, and Lucky. You know, hey, Paul, would you like to read that first? Would you like to start off? I didn't know that was a poem. I saw you say that word, and I puzzled over it for the longest time. I didn't know what that was, except
You puzzled.
expression. Nani?
Well, you know, I lived in Galaxy, Sierra Vista, and I've met Alberto Rios several times, and yo hablo español también. So this is probably one of his most famous poems. So yeah, you just need to follow up and tell me what you don't understand there, lady. I'm already feeling like I'm paranoid about people around me since I'm such a lefty. Nanny. Sitting at her table, she serves the sopa de arroz to me instinctively, and I watch her, the absolute mama, and eat words I might have had to say more out of embarrassment. To speak, now foreign words I used to speak, too, dribble down her mouth as she serves me albóndigas. No more than a third are easy to me. By the stove, she does something with words and looks at me with her back. I am full. I tell her I taste the mint and watch her speak smiles at the stove. All my words make me smile. Nani never serves herself. She only watches me with her skin, her hair. I ask for more. I watch the mama warming more tortillas for me. I watch her fingers in the flame for me. Near her mouth, I see a wrinkle speak of a man whose body serves the ants like she serves me. Then more words from her wrinkles about children, words about this and that, flowing more easily from these other mouths. Each serves as a tremendous string around her, holding her together. They speak. Nani was this and that to me, and I wonder just how much of me will die with her. What were the words I could have been, was. Her insides speak through 100 wrinkles now more than she can bear, steel around her, shouting then, what is this thing she serves? She asks me if I want more. I own no words to stop her. Even before I speak, she serves. So I just want to say that Alberto and I talked a lot. Tucson, I got a degree in Tucson Poetry Center, but we talked in El Paso, and he was so shocked how much I was embedded in the Latinx community, also known as the Chicanos. And we talked about bilingualism, biculturalism, the militarized border. And, I learned how to make tamales when I was 16, and I wrote this in a Cirque essay by Linda Ronstadt's aunts and a grandmother. So I think that this poem, even though it's not political like me, is probably one of the more amazing things that Alberto wrote, because it ties into so much of what I've learned in Latin American countries, the food, the bond, and these rituals that are kind of going by quite quickly in both Mexico and United States. So thanks for letting me read there.
There is. Thank you, Paula, and I'm glad that you chose that poem. There is a political edge to it, because Tito went to school during the time in educational history when kids were swatted for speaking Spanish, even on the playground. They weren't supposed to speak any Spanish. And of course, PTA meetings were a disaster because the kids wouldn't take home notes because they knew their parents would be embarrassed because their parents spoke Spanish. Anyway, his grandmother only spoke Spanish. He only spoke English. So they developed the language that she would cook and he would eat.
Right.
And that's part of what's going on in the poem. Also, this poem is a villain, and not a villanelle, it's a sestina. And to write a sestina is about on the level of difficulty. It'd be like smearing yourself with peanut butter and trying to swim the Amazon. I mean, it's a really hard form. And there are 6 repeating words. You heard them as they came through the poem. And in the last 3 lines, all 6 words are repeated again. He wrote that poem in that class I told you about. He was a student. So you knew that his brilliance was starting very early.
Absolutely. Thanks, Peggy.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
Monica is next.
Okay, I'm going to read 2 poems, Mason Jars by the Window and Seniors. Mason jars by the window. Yes, but beyond happiness, what is there? The question has not yet been answered. No great quotations have issued forth from there. We have no still photographs full of men in fine leather hiking boots, women with new cut walking sticks. So yes, it is the realm of thin tigers prowling out to earn even more stripes. It is the smell of 7 or 8 perfumes, not currently available in America. Maybe this is wrong. Of course, The place may, after all, be populated or overpopulated with dented trash cans in the streets and news of genital herpes. In every smart article, in every slick magazine, everywhere in the place. But everybody there smiles, laughs even, every time a breath can be caught. This is all true. Beyond happiness, it's all the same. Things come back to where we are now. Of course, maybe this is wrong, but don't believe it. A happiness exists. All right, I have seen it for myself. Touched it. Touched the woman who with her daughter together keep ammonia in mason jars by the side window. They will throw it all in his face. God damn him if he ever comes close again. And the next poem is called Seniors. William cut a hole in his Levi's pocket so he could flop himself out in class behind the girls, so the other guys could see, and shit, what guts, we all said. All Conga wanted to do over and over was the rubber band trick, but he showed everyone how, so nobody wanted to see anymore, and one day he cried, just cried until his parents took him away forever. Maya had a hot point refrigerator standing in his living room just for his family to show anybody who came that they could afford it. Me, I got a French kiss. Finally, in the Catholic darkness, my tongue's farthest half vacationing loudly in another mouth like a man in Bermudas, and my body jumped against a flagstone wall. I could feel it through her thin, almost non-existent body. I had at that moment, a hot girl on a summer night, the best of all the things we tried to do. Well, she let me kiss her anyway, all over. Or it was just a flagstone wall with a flaw in the stone, an understanding cavity for burning young men with smooth dreams. The true circumstances gone. The true circumstances about us all then are gone. But when I kissed her, all water, she would close her eyes and they into somewhere would disappear. Whether she was there or not, I remember her clearly, and she moves around the room sometimes until I sleep. I have lain on the desert in watch, low in the back of a pickup truck, for nothing in particular, for stars, for the things behind stars, and nothing comes more than the moment. Always now, here in a truck, the moment again to dream of making love and sweat, this time to a woman, or even to all of them in some allowable way. To those boys then who couldn't cry to the girls before they were women, to friends, me on my back, the sky over me, pressing its simple weight into her body, on me, and into the bodies of them all, on me.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to read one poem called Rabbits and Fire. Everything's been said, but one last thing about the desert, and it's awful. During the brush fires in the Sonoran Desert, brush fires that happened before the monsoon and in the great, deep, wide, and smothering heat of the hottest months, the longest months, the hypnotic, immeasurable lulls of August and July. During these summer fires, jackrabbits and everything else that lives in the brush of the rolling hills, but jackrabbits especially, jackrabbits can get caught in the flames, no matter how fast and big and strong and sleek they are. And when they're caught, cornered in and against the thick trunks and the thin spines of the cactus, when they can't back up anymore, when they can't move, the flame that touches them, and their fur catches fire. Of course, they run away from the flame, finding movement even when there is none to be found, jumping big and high over the wave of fire, or backing even harder through the impenetrable tangle of the hardened saguaro and the prickly pear and cholla and beryl. But whatever they find, what happens is what happens. They catch fire and then bring the fire with them when they run. They don't know they're on fire at first, running so fast as to make the fire shoot like rocket engines and smoke behind them. But then the rabbits tire and the fire catches up, stuck onto them like the needles of the cactus, which at first must be what they think they feel on their skins. They've felt this before, every rabbit. But this time the feeling keeps on. And of course, they ignite the brush and the dried weeds all over again, making more fire all around them. I'm sorry for the rabbits, and I'm sorry for us to know this.
Thank you. And now, Wendy.
I'm reading some extensions on the sovereignty of science. And this was dedicated to his father. It says, "For my father," and there are 5 parts. When the thought came to him, it was so simple. He shook his head. People are always looking for kidneys when their kidneys go bad. Why wait? Why not look when you're healthy? If 2 good kidneys do the trick, wouldn't 3 do the job even better? 3 kidneys, maybe 2 livers, 2 hearts, of course. Instead of repairing damage, why not think ahead? Why not soup up the car? Why not be a touring 8-cylinder classic or one of those old 16-cylinder half-mile-long Duesenbergs? The hardest work of the last quarter of the 20th century is to find an edge in the middle. When something explodes, for example, nobody is confused about what to do. You look toward it. Loud is a magnet, but the laws of magnetism are more complex. One might just as well try this. When something explodes, turn exactly opposite from it and see what there is to see. The loud will take care of itself, and everyone will be able to say what happened in that direction. But who is looking the other way? Nature, that magician and author of loud sounds, zookeeper and cook, electrician and provocateur. Maybe these events are nature's sleight of hand, and the real thing that's happening is in the other hand, or behind, or above, or below, or inside us. On a trip to Bloomington, Indiana, I was being driven there from Indianapolis by my friend, pointed out some hills along the way, saying that these hills were made as a result of the farthest reach of the Ice Age glacier. I had been waiting for this moment ever since 5th grade. I could hardly contain myself, though I'm sure I just said, uh-huh, in the conversation. I took a small and delicious breath. So, I said slowly, that's the terminal moraine, huh? There, I had said it. The phrase I had saved up since the moment I found it in that 5th grade reader. Terminal moraine. I had never said it aloud. What's a little scary, of course, is that I was more excited about remembering than about the hills themselves. But if it was scary, it was sweet in the mouth, too. In a larger picture, one way or another, the Ice Age glacier was still a force to be reckoned with. The reason you can't lose weight later on in life is simple enough. It's because of how so many people you know have died, and that you carry a little of each of them with you.
Oh.
The smallest muscle in the human body is the ear. It is also the only muscle that does not have blood vessels. It has fluid instead. The reason for this is clear. The ear is so sensitive that the body, if it heard its own pulse, would be devastated by the amplification of its own sound. In this knowledge, I sense a great metaphor, but I do not want to be hasty in trying to capture or describe it. Words are our weakest hold on the world.
Thank you. Our next reader is Tonya Wolber.
Okay, thank you. I am going to do Even Keeled and At Ease. And this poem is very short. I think there's a lot of pathos in it. It reminded me of children that I've known in Alaska who are straddling cultures and who are trying really, really hard to meet expectations, but realize that that involves a lot of creative repression. So it's called Even Keeled and At Ease. But the truth is, I am Thursday on a Monday. I am the walking calendar alive of mixed up days and dim hours. I have a week inside of me, a week or a year, time out of order. I have contracted with the world to behave, to try hard, to be a Monday on a Monday. I look like I am happiness, don't you think? On Monday, to you, I have the right laugh and seem always to be even keeled and at ease. And the next poem I'd like to do was chosen by Gene Irvin, but I haven't seen him show up yet on the participant list. So I'm going to do it. I'm not surprised that Gene and I picked the same poem. I love poems about food. And this one is about pies. And it's called Perfect. Well, I mean, it appears to be about pies. It's actually obviously not, but you be the judge. It's called Perfect for Any Occasion. Pies have a reputation, and it's immediate. No talk of potential regarding a pie. It's good or it isn't, but mostly it is. Sweet, very sweet. Right then, right there, blue and red. It can't go to junior college, work hard for grades, work 2 jobs on the side. It can't slowly build a reputation and a growing client base. A pie gets one chance and knows it, wearing as makeup those sparkling granules of sugar, as a collar those diamond cutouts, bespeaking fair day, felicity, contentment. I tell you, everything is great, says a pie. great and fun and fine. And you smell nice too, someone says. A full pound of round sound, all good. Pies live a life of applause. But then there are the other pies, the leftover pies, the ones nobody chooses at Thanksgiving. Mincemeat, what the hell is that? People ask, pointing instead at a double helping of Mr. I can do no wrong pecan pie. But the unchosen pies have a long history too. They have plenty of good stories, places they've been. They were once fun too, but nobody wants to listen to them anymore. Oh, sure, everybody used to love lard, but things have changed, bro. Things have changed. That's never the end of the story, of course. Some pies make a break for it, live underground for a while, doing what they can, talking fast, trying to be sweet pizzas if they're lucky. But no good comes of it. Nobody is fooled. A pie is a pie for one great day. Last week, it was Jell-O. Tomorrow, it'll be cake. The end.
Thank you. That was great. Cynthia Steele, you are up next.
I don't want to follow Tanya, I'm sorry. I never, just make a note, I never want to follow Tanya.
Thank you, Cynthia.
This poem reminds me of a story that I wrote recently, and sometime I'll bring that out too. It's called Don't Go Into the Library. The library is dangerous. Don't go in. If you do, you know what will happen. It's like a pet store or a bakery. Every single time you'll come out of there holding something in your arms. These novels with their big eyes and those all nonsense, all muscle greyhounds and Dobermans, all nonfiction and business. Cuddly when they're young, but when the first page is turned, the donut scent of it all, knowledge. The aroma of coffee being made. In all those books, something for everyone, the deli offerings of civilization itself. The library is the book of books. It's concrete and wood and glass covers, keeping within them the very big, very long story of everything. The library is dangerous, full of answers. If you go inside, you might not come out the same person who went in. And the other one is, thank you. The other one is When There Were Ghosts. When There Were Ghosts. And this poem, my husband, who is not a poetry aficionado, not a poetry anything, he loved it because it reminded him of his childhood. So, When There Were Ghosts. On the Mexico side in the 1950s and 60s, there were movie houses everywhere. And for the longest time, people could smoke as they pleased in the comfort of the theaters. The smoke rose and the movie told itself on the screen and in the air, both. The projection caught a little in the wavering mist of the cigarettes. In this way, every story has two stories, and every character lived near its ghost. Looking up, we knew what would happen next before it did, as if the movie were dreaming itself. And we were part of it, part of the plot itself, and not just the audience. And in that dream, the actors' faces bent a little, hard to make it out exactly in the smoke. so that Maria Felix and Pedro Almendares looked a little like my aunt and one of my uncles. And so they were. And so were we all in the movies, which is how I remember it. Popcorn in hand, smoke in the air, gum on the floor. Those Saturday nights, we ourselves were the story and the stuff and the stars. We ourselves were alive in the dance of the dream. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean wasn't here. And so we go now to Lucky.
Well, I have to tell you, 3 of us tonight, Tonya, darling, we all 3 picked pie. You know, it's the first poem I looked at and I said, oh my God, this is so amusing. And I kept reading it and reading it. So, and the guy who was not showing up, he also was going to read pie. And it's just so much fun. I mean, I won't read it again.
Oh, go ahead, Lucky.
Can
Go
I?
ahead.
Let me read. There's somebody who dropped out and I'm going to read their poem. Okay. All right. Okay. By the way, I am sitting in a Pierre Bonnard painting. Do you recognize his style for Piece of You?
That's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. You know what? I thought it would be so much fun just to figure out, get a design. If I'm over here, well, I'm over here because of my computer, but then that means the other side will have to have the action. So I'm pictured, I am in Barcelona. It's like I'm virtually traveling. It's so much fun. Not one person said, so Lucky, where are you tonight? Where are you over there? No, isn't it weird that I have a painting behind me? You know. Anyway, so and I have to tell you, and I've got New York City in the morning, the Empire State Building's in the middle, the east light is coming in. You can see Liberty in the distance on the right, the statue of Liberty Island, and then you see the Brooklyn Bridge way in the distance. But guess what? King Kong is on top of the Empire State Building, and you see all these exquisite, great buildings. So that's how I start each day. I'm in New York with that King Kong. Anyway, it's fun. It's something to do. Okay, this one is called, and I have to say, there are dozens of folk tales I read that they say somebody is sent on an errand and it gets derailed. So this is called One Thursday Afternoon, Magdalena, Sonora, 1939. Balthazar went to the market and came home with a parrot. Thursdays in this town were always just so. What should have been 4 big potatoes and some white cheese came home in a cage filled with green feathers and 2 wings. The mathematics of exchange in this world, the stomach or the heart, which of these, how much of one for the other, Friday would have to sort out. On a Thursday afternoon, the world sang, a full dinner this way, coming through the air. So I have a question. Was the bird dinner or was, what was but do you know? Does anybody? I think that's so interesting. It comes, flying through the air. I don't know. But you can't feed a whole big dinner party on one parrot. No, maybe 2 wings. He saw 2 wings and feathers. Anyway, that was the poem. And the other one is the hilarious one. Perfect for any occasion. Pies have a reputation, and it's immediate. No talk of potential regarding a pie. It's good or it isn't, but mostly it is. Sweet, very sweet. Right then, right there, blue and red. It can't go to junior college. Work hard for the grades, work 2 jobs on the side. It can't slowly build a reputation and a growing client base. A pie gets one chance, and knows it. Wearing as makeup those sparkling granules of sugar, as a collar those diamond cutouts, bespeaking fair day, felicity, contentment. I tell you everything is great, says a pie, great and fun and fine. And you smell nice too, someone says. A full pound of round sound, all all good. Pies live a life of applause. It's a funny one. But then there are the other pies, the leftover pies, the ones nobody chooses at Thanksgiving. Mincemeat? What the hell is that? People ask, pointing instead to a double helping of Mr. I can do no wrong pecan pie. But the unchosen pies have a long history too. They have plenty of good stories, places they've been. But they were once fun too, but nobody wants to listen to them anymore. Oh, sure, everybody used to love lard, but things have changed, brother. Things have changed. That's never the end of the story. Of course, some pies make a break for it, live underground for a while, doing what they can, talking fast, trying to be sweet pizzas if they're lucky. But no good comes of it. Nobody is fooled. A pie is a pie for one great day. Last week it was Jell-O. Tomorrow it'll be cake. So there you
I wish we could read every poem twice so we
I
could
know.
the sounds and the words marinate in our minds a little bit. That was so good.
Thank you.
I'm glad
Great
you
job.
said that.
Lucky.
I'm glad you said that because we've come to that conclusion before. And when someone wanted to read a poem someone else had, I said, let's just go for it. And maybe
Yeah.
we'll fall back on that.
Sure, why not?
Two different things when it's a different voice.
Mhm.
Yeah, because, yeah, I think that's good. See, people are signing up to read at Fringe, which is right here in just a minute. I will read myself as well. And of course, you can read your own, it's mainly, you can read your own work, but someone's going to read more of Peggy's. That'll be good. Fringe is a concept we developed about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, and it's fashioned after the Valdez Theater Conference, where after the regular shows are over, the actors all get together for Fringe. And it's crazy, a little bit more wild, way more informal, and usually in like a gathering room in the back of a bar. And so using the concept just to give us some informal time. So like starts now. And to conclude the prior program, I want to say thank you very much to Peggy. And this signals the end, and you can sign off if you want. Not everybody wants to stay up later, but this was just delightful.
Thank you. No, I want to hear what everybody's going to say. But before we say the end of that part, I just want to say, because somebody read the library poem, that Tito is married to a woman named Maria Guadalupe de Jesus Barron Rios, and she was the first branch manager of the Phoenix Public Library who spoke Spanish. She was assigned to a branch that she was told, we don't have patrons from the Spanish-speaking community. And she went into the branch and said, where are your Spanish language materials? And they said, oh. So she developed all the Spanish language materials. And then when they started a new branch for the main Phoenix Library, she was assigned to that branch. And she let the teenagers come in and pick the furniture and the materials and the music and everything for the teen area. And what she discovered was homeless kids came there every hour the library was open. And she had no idea that that was going to happen, but she welcomed him and was able to help a whole lot of homeless kids. So Tito spent a whole lot of time in libraries and around librarians. So I just wanted to mention that part. Thank you all so much for sharing this time. And I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, I want to kind of pause too in my rush to be an organizer here. I want to just take a minute. People may have feedback for you, Peggy, too. So let's take a few minutes for comments. And if you want to put up a hand, I'll try to keep you ordered so people don't speak all at once. Linda.
This was just fabulous.
Hi, Linda.
I'm kind of lonesome here in Homer. It's good to see you all. Thank you.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, Sean.
Yeah, I was just writing in the chat along, so this will be easier. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Peggy. Greatly enjoyed your set, just loaded. Lots of good stuff. That Ava poem, circling back to the cracked up asphalt, and just lots of touching moments and lovely language going on. The Abecedarian was a lot of fun. And then an introduction to Alberto for me, and loved his work too. And I look forward to reading more of both of your stuff. It was just a lot of good history, lot of great stuff. And everyone read so well too. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And you have great riches awaiting you when you read his work.
Yeah, I could tell. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Tamara.
I just want to say I feel like I learned a lot tonight. I mean, just about the work, but also a deeper sense of poetry and community and the way it touches people. So it was really brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
I'm about ready to sign off, Sandra. Thank you so much for this evening. It was, again, really great. The thing I love most about Poetry Parley is being introduced to a poet that I hadn't read before.
Exactly. Yep.
So thank you, Peggy.
You're welcome. Thanks, Monica. So now, do you have a new book?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm working on one, but it's not out.
Well, that's good. Well, congratulations on your previous book, which I admire completely.
Oh, thanks so much.
And that's Watermouse for those of you who might not have heard yet.
Yeah.
Okay, well then let's change gears.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to say goodnight. It was good seeing everybody. Really lovely to see all your beautiful faces.
Bye.
Good night, Dolly. Thanks. I have to say good night too. Thank you. And Peggy, thanks for introducing us to Alberto.
You're very welcome. Enjoy.
I am enjoying. Thank you. And I loved your poems.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, so the order is Eric, Tonya, Cynthia, Aned, and me. Okay, and others here want to read too? That you're not on, you didn't put yourself on? Wendy, Lucky? You guys can decide you want to. We'll just go through that order, and then you can decide if you want to. So go ahead, Eric, take it away.
I'm going to read two poems, and it's a shame that Monica just left because many of you have heard these two poems before. So this will be the second reading that Monica wanted to hear. So the first one actually is going to be published in the upcoming Cirque journal, and it came about from a memory triggered by Ann Casta's poem "Song," and it's entitled "Baxter Bog, 1955."
This one.
Below zero, we cleared snow and skated on black ice that cracked and moaned. Methane bubbles hung suspended below our blades, snickering and carving the surface to sugar. No houses stood within sight to see us, only a few black dwarf swamp spruce. Summertime, we slogged over tussocks, sometimes catching sight of trumpeter swans landing, legs outstretched forward, with white ungainly wings backpedaling furiously. Stripped to our underwear, we dove into the icy water, only the top 2 feet warmed by the sun. We would swim down under the moss and sedges that jutted out from the shore, forming a watery cave. Roots hung down in the frigid darkness as our feet scissored and slithered the oozing peat below. On shore again and running home after pulling our pants over milk-white, goose-pimpled thighs to Mother, panicked at what we had done. They never found the Cessna that sank in the sonar-sucking muck. There is no bottom's bottom, the Baxter Bog.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. I could really see it. I've heard it a number of times.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it more each time.
Okay.
So next.
Next one is
Oh,
called.
I'm going to read more. Okay, good. I thought you were stopping.
One more, yeah. Cloud of Unknowing, which is a medieval mystical manual. And in this poem, I really haven't explained it much when I've talked about it, read it before, but there is a reference to the tree of knowledge, but it's not tree in Eden. It's more in the future, and it's representing the knowledge of everything, all existence. And then there's also references to the Voyager space probe and things that are carried on the probe, including a quote from a Chuck Berry song. So
Wild.
Okay, Cloud of Unknowing. Oh, I maybe should tell you the story about this. This is also, I worked with Ann Cast on this in my FMA program, and I wrote a poem that had 4 stanzas, and I submitted it to her, and basically she said, well, the first 3 stanzas were way too cerebral, and she suggested that I throw those out and start with the last stanza, which she said sung. So the first stanza of this poem was the last stanza of the other poem. And the hardest thing is I had to figure out what in the world I was writing about to be able to write the rest of the poem. So there goes. So, okay, Cloud of Unknowing. Those who've been to that place know it by what it's not and climb down from the branches of time, through leaves like petals of light that do not shine. Old newborn pups leading each other after wrestling with the night. They weren't supposed to return from that Stygian hole that darkness cannot leave and come back down the forbidden tree. They now must see through others' eyes, through those whose eyes also cannot see, being locked within the Morbus strip of their minds and our life so blind to life. Those returned cannot tell of what they've seen. Who would understand? That which from the pocket spills is tinged black on black behind the blossom, brought back to taunt the mind. Around their necks hang tongueless bells of brass etched with Starman, Starwoman. Dark was the night. The eyepiece of the telescope points back to the golden edge of where we were. But time's arrows cannot be turned. The ghosts must keep moving, stumbling as they go, faces shining. And though they cannot see, they see.
Thank you. Tanya, you're next.
Yes, a good friend of mine gave me Peggy's book Blaze, which has these marvelous, beautiful paintings by Kess Woodward, and they're all of birch trees, and it is just a very beautiful book. So the first poem I'm going to read from Blaze is called The Day the Leaves Came. And every year I note on my calendar the day of the greening, which is the day on which you can see a discernible green glow in the birches at sea level in Anchorage. It's very strictly defined.
Right.
And this year, the day of the greening was May 12th. And I take a green magic marker and I fill in the day on my calendar. So I can always tell when the day of the greening was. So here is Peggy's poem about the greening. For so long, the hillside shone white, the white of white branches laden, the sky more white, the river unmoved. And when the first stirring started underneath, the hollowing, subtle, unpredictable, rotten crust gave way, ice water up to the ankle. She turned from her work and shook her wet foot. The buds had broken, not the green of birches in full leaf, not meadow, tundra, berry patch, tussock. For this moment only, this green, the touch of one loved in secret, a gasp held in, let go. I think that's a gorgeous poem. And the next one I'm going to read is called Exit Glacier. I wrote a poem about Exit Glacier once, and I just enjoyed the synergy between what I had written years ago and this poem, Exit Glacier. When we got close enough, we could hear rivers inside the ice, heaving splits, the groaning of a ledge about to calve. Strewn in the moraine, fresh moose sign, tawny oblong pellets breaking up sharp black shale. In one breath, ice and air. History, the record of breaking. Prophecy, the warning of what's about to break out from under 4 stories of bone-crushing turquoise retreating. It's Exit Glacier, all right. And I can only read one more. I had 3 more picked out, but let me pick my favorite because I don't want to go on too long here. Oh, okay, I'm going to give Peggy the choice. I picked Spring, Sheena Night, and Swans Where We Don't Expect Them.
Swans Where We Don't Expect Them.
Oh, very good. Okay. Swans Where We Don't Expect Them. Tundra swans twine necks among snowflakes, vanishing into evening's river. Past breakup, tablecloths of rotten ice nest along the bank. Halfway, swan wings open, then settle in like second thoughts. Maybe they flew north over Minto, traced halos over brooding ponds, saw from far up without touching. The world is hard and will stay hard a while longer. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. I'm honored.
Thank you.
May I just tell you that Kes and I, for many years, Kes and I, he was chair of the art department. I was chair of the English department. When we stopped being furniture, then we kept saying we should do something, we should do something. And when we both retired, he said, bring some poems to my studio. So I brought all the Alaska poems. And then Kes said, he's very polite. And he said, I was sort of hoping we might work with the sexy poems. So I brought all the sexy poems over to the studio. And the great thing was, when I looked at his paintings, I started writing. And when he looked at the poems, he started painting. So the book got fatter. It was a wonderful thing. I recommend working with somebody who works in another art form, because when you have 2 imaginations at work, it becomes a third thing.
I quite agree. And I have to tell you, I read some of those sex poems and I could not get through them for Fringe. So I was not going to take the chance on reading them, but believe me, I know which ones they are.
Oh, I've got that book. I've got to look a little deeper into it.
You won't have to look far.
All right. Thanks, Tonya. Cynthia, you're up next.
All right. Following off of the poem that I read earlier, I'm going to read A Naked Lady in a Library, which is a short story that I wrote. All right. Essie Hinton, The Outsiders, Go Ask Alice, Roald Dahl, Dr. Seuss, Judy Blume, Shel Silverstein, libraries wherever we lived provided a place to get lost as much as possible. Maurice Sendak, Beverly Cleary, Boxcar Children. I read primarily to fuel my fantasy of running away and living in a boxcar with some other kids. But I knew Caldecott or Newbery Award winners were way better at stealing my attention. I pull them out and look for those gold seals, read a bit, click my tongue, then push them back. They make a shushing noise. I look around. The paint lay thick on the walls, dulled with the touch of children's fingerprints. Children like me will occasionally not bring back the borrowed book, doled out with stern warnings. But I intend to keep it, I wanted to say, just to see their expressions. Okay, I'd say instead, instantly forgetting her words, just knowing my intentions. The olive green, mustard yellow, and basic primer brown of the woodblock stamped bears cover this library. Posters announcing upcoming novels or reading clubs in white backgrounds spot the once bright brick walls, yellowed by fluorescent lighting that twitches occasionally. The books, crisp, often with fold-out pages of artwork, cackled at the silence-revering librarian. I borrowed so many books. I was collecting them. I would touch the card spot in the back, the one where a middle-aged lady would long to replace the card. I took a secret pleasure in the book having found its permanent dwelling place in my pile. I'd thwart her. Before long, we'd be forced to move, over and over. The pile of books I'd accumulated always went back. A few kids, sixth graders like myself, found nudity in book pages made with paint, sketches from charcoal. To us, they may as well have been photos tucked away in a drawer at a Kodak photo shop to amuse shopkeepers who'd printed doubles, having seen the sort of stuff Marge develops. In this moment, free to laugh at it all, there it is, nakedness, the world stripped bare. Pretend. It is new and there are no forged, hazy remembrances of wrongfulness. I'm invited to share the weirdness of open displays of nudity, of acting as if it were new and I'd never really seen a body. It makes me feel, if only for a moment, as if I were innocent at 10. As if I had not been shown photos in a dirty magazine, as if I had not been touched there by a grown man. I pull this blanket of childhood over me and I feel enveloped by the camaraderie of oneness. Yes, we are all at the same stage, pre-menses, pre-kisses, pre-touches in that way. David Meese would stick his tongue down my throat the same year, but I'd throw my books down and scream at the top of my lungs. It's important for them to know I'm innocent, even if I'm not. I wonder if they notice in that frozen moment that my eyes flick up to the rectangular windows where daylight reminds me of the outside world. If they can see the pall that pulls my face downward in suspended animation, I am suddenly in that speckled laminate tile world, struck with a pain in my chest. The difference. I see in all their small faces an accusation, unintended, that I am that naked, drawn sketch of a woman that I have, no curves. Yet I am the painted lady, grown, awkward, and a sexual object for children to gawk at. No, I'm imagining it. Titters, fingers point, flip, crackling thick pages in another large art book with the librarian peering over her cat eyes. We all stood shoulder to shoulder around one another, within a foot anyways. Titters at the body's slopes and curves and ridges. In our world, the titties and butts. We are shushed in our clothed bodies, in our wonder of the world ahead of us, in our untied tennies, strings hanging loose and short or knotted. I deny my life in that moment. I lie about my closeted insistences where I mutely push away my stepfather, his mouth, his hot air, and I revel in that space where he is far away. I'm among other children my age. In this moment, there are only spines, pages of books, big as my core. And I know that I will stay here looking at books and reading long after these children have gone.
Wow, incredible. Thank you. Okay, it's me. Okay, I might have to turn on the overhead light. Okay, I think I can read this. And this is from Defiant Street Poems and Other Writing by Sandy Clevin. Wild Darling. And I don't have to do any introduction because the story is fully told. And the lily, how passionately it needs some wild darling, Rumi. There were 75 things I might have done different. Shoes on wrong feet, grabbed the other coat, turned it over, let blood, precision in brushing, 1, 2, 3. Split the pot, lucky socks, spit in the wind, cursed. I would have run, stayed close to home, stepped on cracks, touched each light switch, took my time, fast. I thought the danger past, too late to paint the lintel, blow the trumpets, lock the door, cry. Cry, I would have cried, I would have begged, made promises, lied. I didn't know, and a child was born. A child was born and a child was taken, halfway to heaven, but caught behind glass. He might be there with Jesus, but he's barely here with us. He missed the mark, the arrow to the doorway, to the channel, to the path. He can't cross over. He might not want to. What do we know about the inner lives of whales? Who they love, what they long for, what they need or remember? Totem signals grown nothing that our ears perceive. No flash of ebony eye speaks of yesterday's doings. It's like that with Jaden, but this. He laughs. Of all the compensation for suffering, this is the finest. He laughs, delighted, agog with joy, ecstatically happy like a Sufi or a shaker. He is 6. Jaden, it's Grandma, Jaden. He's puzzled, picks up something through the waters, some groaning signal, cocks his head then. He skitters out of reach in waters I can't fathom. I stroke his cheek. He turns away, turns back to kiss mouth slack like a baby's. 75 charms I could have worked, prayers and potions too. To sink a bargain, I'd offer my eyes to bring this baby back. I pray to dead relatives, propose to the dying, will you help him from there if you can? They reply, is Jaden still laughing? Is he still laughing? If Jaden is laughing, Jaden is fine. Jaden is laughing. Jaden is laughing. Jaden is laughing, and Jaden is fine. We could accept this sad distance with more ease if he didn't find it all so funny, if he were not so mysteriously, so constantly, so recklessly amused. I'm just going to read that one because it's enough. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandra.
Can we let Alberto Rios have the last word?
Great. Oh, yes.
That
very
sounds
good.
great.
Yeah.
All right. Because I think the title of this poem is true of us. We are of a tribe. We are of a tribe. We plant seeds in the ground and dreams in the sky, hoping that someday the roots of one will meet the upstretched limbs of the other. It has not happened yet. We share the sky, all of us, the whole world. Together we are a tribe of eyes that look upward, even as we stand on uncertain ground. The earth beneath us moves, quiet and wild, its boundaries shifting, its muscles wavering. The dream of sky is indifferent to all this, impervious to borders, fences, reservations. The sky is our common home, the place we all live. There we are in the world together. The dream of sky requires no passport. Blue will not be fenced. Blue will not be a crime. Look up. Stay a while. Let your breathing slow. Know that you always have a home here. So thank you for being part of my tribe.
Thank you so much for your
Oh,
reading.
you're very welcome.
You were lovely.
Thanks.
So many thoughts in my head now of your work.
And I got to go find Blaze.
Enjoy. It's funny because I was a little nervous. I have a great aunt who was married to a Presbyterian minister, and I didn't know how she would take that book. And she wrote to me and said, when I was a girl, we were taught when we were hanging up our underwear to put sheets over them, over the underwear on the line so no one would see our underwear. And she said, it's so refreshing to see a young woman, I was young then, to see a young woman writing about sex in a fresh and honest way. So she really surprised me.
Oh, that's great. Taking risks like that can sometimes lead to that kind of thing, and that's awesome. We just stick our necks out.
There you go.
Anyway, thanks everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
May I say something?
Yes. Who is that?
This is Carolyn Hayslett, and I am not a poet at all, but I am Peggy's mother's cousin. So she is my first cousin once removed, I think. And I am so glad that I was able to join the group. Like I say, I'm not a poet, but I very much enjoyed tonight. And I consider Peggy to be my fairy godmother.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thanks so much for joining in.
Sure, it's been wonderful.
And she's zooming in from Wyoming.
Yes.
Where in Wyoming?
Laramie. It's where the only four-year university is located.
Ah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes.
I have a question. If this is recorded, can I send it to Tito?
Oh, yes.
And how do I do that?
Cynthia will be editing, and then she'll post it, and we can send it specifically to you as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Cynthia, for always being willing to do that. Eric?
I have a question. What is next? What's coming up?
What is coming up? Sandra?
Oh. I don't know.
Excuse me, this is Carol Anderson.
Hi.
But I know the message has gone out to the local small Lithuanian community, but the invite has been extended further. And Sandra, I was so touched to hear that if we reach capacity, you would then allow for a Zoom attendance also.
Yes, we will do that.
Bless you. Thank you.
Yeah, and there are several in this meeting who have RSVP'd who are already. If anyone else who is here now is interested in either virtual or in person, send me a note and I'll extend that send that invitation. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I'm going, wait, this sounds so familiar. The Lithuanian poet. Oh, that must be me. It is me. So good. So we do not at the moment have a poet for June. Oh, but you know what we do have, and maybe this will be enough. Let me tell you this. Some of you know Zach Rogo. He was also faculty. He's from the Berkeley, San Francisco area. He's coming up because he has a gig in the theater conference. He's coming up, he's staying at my house. And I told him, well, and he's also reading at the Writer's Block. But I said, let's also have a event here. And he said, good, yes, let's schedule that soiree. So on the 26th, which is a Saturday, we will entertain Zach here and he will read some. And
which month is that?
It should be good. What's that?
Which month?
That's in June.
Okay, June. Okay, good.
So how about we'll just take a breather for Parley in June with 2 of these in-person events, and I'll send out more information. But thank you so much, Carol. That was great. And you're on mute now. If you're speaking, I see you speaking. Unmute, please.
Oh, thank you kindly. I do want to mention one other very special person in Alaska, and that is Sean Lyons, who passed away this winter. I'm in communication with some people that would like to do a memorial in honor of Sean. Sean was a classical guitarist, a lover of poetry, just an amazing man of literature. And so we're still talking about organizing something. It may be at not Villanova. He owned and then sold that restaurant, or it closed. But there's another restaurant that he played classical guitar music at. But we're considering a night of music and poetry. And I'll let everyone know through this channel later this summer when a memorial is planned for him.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. I've heard a lot about Sean. I didn't know him personally, although we published him in Cirque. And I know Kathleen Tarr was in the writing group with him and has been very affected by his passing. Peter Porco and others.
Oh, yes. Yes, I'll keep you informed.
Thank you so much, Carol. Okay, well, this was very worthwhile to hang out and get more going. Anybody else have anything they want to add?
Just want to say, Sandy, thank you for all that you do for the Alaska community of writers and for individual writers. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for referring people to us.
You're very welcome.
Okay, see you.
Bye.
Night, everyone.
Good night.